What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Fireside with A&A. Yes, we are back. We're back in December. No November episode. I think no one actually knows, actually. But if you did notice as well,
People miss us.
well, yeah, I think they missed you more than me, if anything. But we pushed back the November episode for context because Abby was playing Double Exposure and you know, traveling, Thanksgiving, etc., all that stuff. We were like, can I hear a lot of noise? Is that the cat?
Sorry, that's my cat feeder that went off at a certain time.
Yeah, okay. I think I was going crazy then. No, we'll continue on anyway. We were going to record in November. We decided not to because scheduling, Thanksgiving, all that other stuff that came around. And then also Abby was playing Double Exposure. So we thought we'd just wait till December to kind of get into things because there's some interesting takes, some interesting conversations. We spoke about this I wish I would just hit record an hour ago. We could have kept half the conversations in because it was quite funny. But anyway, we're back. Obviously, I'm Adnan. Abby's here. Abby, hello.
Hello.
Yes, so obviously we've got a lot to talk about here. And before we start as well, if you are new here and you do like the content, even if you don't like the content, you should like the video, share with your friends, support the channel. You get all your content, you get access to all your content here, Life is Strange content, interviews, reviews, podcasts, all that stuff. So do stay tuned with it because we're almost at 1,500 subscribers. So please do subscribe. It helps support the channel, which is quite nice. You can get access to these kind of shows as well all the time. So Abby, obviously, me and Adam did a long review episode for Double Exposure when it came out. And you have been watching from the sidelines, doing your little things here and there, and then also playing the game. And I've been kind of watching you play it chapter by chapter in terms of you're giving me your cues about where you're up to. Where are we at now with this? You finished this game. Obviously, we're recording now in December. There's been layoffs at Deck 9. A lot of stuff has happened. I'm just kind of curious where you're standing right now, having played it.
Well, you know that I am a defector at this point. I loved the game personally. I really liked the moral standing of it, right? Like, as a queer person trying to navigate academia, that's how I found the Life is Strange franchise to begin with. I was I am currently still a lesbian, but I was leaving my PhD program. And so I really resonated kind of with that aspect of this game. And I do have my issues with some of the plot points that we talked about, like some of the things that are dangling, some of the things that were not fully explained. And of course, I do miss Chloe, but I really loved it.
Yeah, but you've always been more Deck 9 focused because of BTS anyway.
Yeah.
And I have different feelings about this game every time I think about it, and I do need to go back at some point. I'm just kind of have no stomach to go back to it at this point because there's not much I'm going to miss if I'm going to go back and play it at this point. But I think the big one for me is the elephant in the room because obviously you were a Chloe fan, and that is really a big issue within this game. I think at the moment, is that enough to really forgive you about where they go with that? Because where did you pick it? Did you go with the timeline where you've broken up with her?
Yeah, I couldn't bear to kill her off fully.
Yeah. But do you know what as well? I don't know if you felt the same way or if you kind of grew into it. By the time I made the decision where I said we broke up, I'd already disconnected myself from that game. Even though I tried to pull myself back into the experience, I basically spent the entire first game developing a really close relationship with this character, destroyed a town, and basically you've now broken my character up with this person. And instead of actually telling it on the screen, which is what this game needs, if you're going to do something as ballsy as that as it is, you do need to tell it on screen. You basically wrote it off screen. I'm kind of curious, did you feel how did you drag yourself back into the game? Because that one was the thing that really lingered over me whilst every character was being horny around me.
So true. Well, I think I had some time to grieve because, of course, the game had been spoiled for me. So by the time I got to that decision, I don't know what this says about me as a person, but once I heard that we broke up, I was like, okay, let's go on to Safi, on to the next one. And I spent my entire game hitting on Safi. So
you've moved on quick, didn't you?
Oh yeah. And Amanda.
I can't. Amanda's.
It's
right. Just get rid of make Amanda a normal character, make Vin a normal character, and just go with Safi and Max as the love interest. It's the one character. It's the one character where the love interest could work. Because obviously, look, we've character assassinated Chloe anyway, as it is. We're talking about just in this dynamic. If you're going to go with it, at least put them two together because they do seem to be like that. You're trying to make Safi like a Chloe Price-esque figure. Just put them two together, but it's like they just don't seem to do anything. It's just like endless flirting, and just like as I said before, and like in all the chats, it's like you can just cut the sexual tension with a knife between the two. It's like make that the love interest. Why are we like messing about with everything else? It's just a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I was wondering if she was so touchy because she was Lebanese, but maybe it's because she's lesbian, you know?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that as well. Like she's less Lebanese, or like I don't actually know if they've specifically outlined what her heritage is. I think they kind of like it's never. I don't know if it's specifically ever said. It might be, but they do allude that it's like Middle Eastern culture background. One thing I don't get, for example, is right. So in there as well, if we're taking it's like Lebanese, right? Lebanese, I imagine, will have people who are from like Muslim background religions, right? Because obviously her mum does it. So I think like we've so in some messages as well. We get a usual one from Yasmin. Where it's like inshallah from like to
Oh my
one of the other
gosh,
characters.
yes.
It's like it's
She's
like
like
every like
inshallah all over the place.
yeah, it's like every like I was thinking, I was like, am I talking to my own mum here? It's like my own mum doesn't do that ever, like in any way, shape, or form. But it's like we get that. So obviously, if you're establishing that she's saying like inshallah, which would mean that she's a Muslim, then Safi would maybe be a Muslim or not. Did you ever establish her religion? And it's like obviously she sleeps with Vin Lang, which is suggested in one part of the game, and then it seems to be suggested that Safi is an interest of Max, which would make her bisexual. Are we like? Is there some? Is this another systemic thing that we need to talk about with this game, where like clear direction isn't given on here? Because like, especially when that society as well, like with Muslims and Islam as well, it's seen very differently. LGBTQ relationships, and I'm kind of like, what is going on here? Is this another thing that I need to go and explore when I play this game? Because I just I
Yeah.
don't I just don't get. I will go back and play this game because all I've ever heard so far is that people think that the game is told better from the perspective where Chloe is dead. Because I think it does anyway. I think it leads credence to that game being that's the timeline it's set on. But my word, the more I think about this game, the more the stuff that happens with plot points, it's just baffling beyond belief. Like we were talking about, I'm going to pull you up on this as well. Before we
Gosh.
recorded, me and Abby rewatched the chapter 4 chase sequence because Abby was convinced. She was like, how does Max see Safi's footprints in the other world when they're moving between timelines? We had to like rewatch this scene properly and be like, well, we jumped into that timeline, then we're chasing after and pulsing her, then we go back into the timeline, and then we find it's like, oh god, it's just so overcomplicated. For a Life is Strange game, it's so overcomplicated, and it doesn't even have any payoff. If anything, I don't know. Like, I think if anything with Safi, I like Safi as a character, but one of the
Mhm.
things I have with it is when they're trying to make Safi Chloe Price, and it's like, stop it. It's like if Safi was in true colors, I think people would like her more as a character. But they basically put her out to like pasture with like the hate mob because it's like her dialogue is written in weird places at certain points. But it's like Olivia Alabasi does a fantastic performance as Olivia as Olivia
Yes.
does a
Gosh, she is
fantastic
so
performance.
good.
She does a fantastic performance as Safi. Like I think all the actors do a very good performance with what they're given, if anything. But like let her be her own thing, Safi. Like why is she written? She's written in such a weird. It's just so weird when I'm watching Safi's story arc because it's like there are moments of like really good standout moments, and then there are moments like, oh boy, this is going down like topsy turvy. I don't get what they were trying to do with the character. I really don't. It just feels too many chefs in the kitchen, man. This game had over like I think it's like if you look at the credits, the amount of writers that have been come, gone, etc. worked on this game, it
Hmm.
shows with what we get. And as we talked about before as well, plot points dangling everywhere, like everywhere. Because as soon as Abby came on this call, I was like, right, Abby, like tell me who's killed Safi. And it's like we need an explanation for this because no one has still been able to define that. And I can 100% unequivocally tell people I don't think anyone really knows that at this point. Maybe Felice and Stauder at one point will do an interview and tell us maybe at some point that this is the I don't get it. I don't get this game. What didn't you like about the game? Let's go for that first because there are still things that I liked about this game myself, but let's go for the things that like irked you a little bit. Did anything stand out in terms of like things that you didn't like, barring obviously the Chloe situation?
Yeah. The cow skull through the windshield plotline was a little bit confusing. I didn't think that Vin necessarily had a motivation to protect Gwen, which is kind of the explanation that he gave me in my playthrough, like that, like, oh, I didn't want Safi hearing that Gwen canceled her book deal. So that kind of bothered me. And I think just the general idea of an LGBTQ character, Safi, um, being kind of pushed down in all directions, even from other LGBTQ faculty like Gwen. Gwen didn't stand up for her either. That didn't quite sit right to me, but it felt very authentic. Um, I don't know. I That just kind of
In the
bothered me.
sense, it means it feels authentic in the sense that people pushing down on Safi because she's from LGBTQ background, but not the fact that Gwen has defended her, which I do find a bit weird because I thought Gwen would be defending her.
Well, at that point, Gwen had nothing left to lose because she had been fired effectively from her post at the university. And she had the chance to take down this asshole, Lucas Colmenero, whom she didn't get along with anyway, even as she was a faculty member. So it didn't make sense that at that point she would be like, no, actually, I'm not going to get involved. And Moses, who stood the most to lose because he was like a grad student slash faculty member, that was another thing
Mm-hmm.
that bothered me. They should have just made him a postdoc. Um, yeah, his little badge said faculty, but then like in Max's notes, he's a grad student and he has that beautiful large office with like millions of dollars of equipment.
He's
Anyway,
living up my Moses. My
yeah, he's an NSF fellow. Um, but yeah, like he stood the most to lose and he still decided to take down Lucas Colmenero, which maybe was an explanation of his friendship with Safi. Um, but it didn't make sense that like Gwen wouldn't defend her, but Moses was all for it?
Yeah, the more that you just mention it as well, the university system is an absolute mess in this game because
Oh,
it's like,
such a mess.
so Gwen is a doctor. They established that Dr. Gwen Hunter, right? Lucas Colmenero, I assume, is a professor or a lecturer. They don't. I can't off the top of my head. I'm not specific about his role. Obviously, Moses, as you said, has his own thing, and it's the same with Max. Max is an artist in residence, and
Yeah, but she
then
doesn't even have a college degree, so I don't understand that.
just it's like just make her a professor, as you said. Just make them professors or grad
Yeah,
students or some thing where it's a bit more specific. Because yeah, that's something else. And Yasmin's the president, so basically there's no other teachers in the school. It's just these people so far. Like, you're that limited like thing where it's like it drives me crazy these games. But
oh my
um,
gosh.
with that as well, that's the issue with the university system. Because like I don't know about you, you're gonna have to give me more exposition with this as well. I found Crosstalk to be very weird in terms of the way that the characters, like these students, like mixing with their teachers and stuff. I was like, that's a bit weird because that's not going to happen in the UK system at all. And then we were talking about this on podcast. I specifically mentioned to you because we were talking about Max's characterization. I was saying to you as well, it's like, why do people keep referring Max in different ways? So it's like, obviously, Moses and Safi like Max, Loretta's like Miss Caulfield. And it's like, okay. And it's like, does she refer to like, other characters? In a different thing. She's like Max Caulfield. Then you have like Diamond and Reggie who like Max, and it's like, hang on a minute, your student's like Loretta. Why are you using that? And then it's like Yasmin is calling her Maxine, and it's like, fine, she's older. Fine, she's the president of the college. Fine, I get she'll call her Maxine because it's full name. But just I'm asking for one line when Max leaves the office and she's like, I wish you didn't call her Maxine. It's always Max.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I just need my character exposition. You might be able to jump her 10 years ahead of time, but we basically need that explained. You can't just leave it dangling because it annoys people who like love the first game. Like people want to hear that kind of moment where it's like, at least it's like, okay, yeah, fair enough, because Yasmin's going to keep calling it that, but we kind of established that. But yeah, this university is weird. Is crosstalk even a thing in America? You've been to uni.
No, that's a Deck Nine creation. But yeah, the character interactions didn't
Oh,
really
sorry.
make
I'm not going to say like specifically crosstalk is a thing. I'm just talking about like as a forum board. I don't know about it. I'm not getting that crazy yet.
um you mean like the way that they interact with each other, that faculty and students interact? No, that's not
Yeah,
real. And in fact, as a graduate student, you certainly wouldn't be like out partying with your undergrads. And the whole storyline about Diamond being in love with Moses was deeply unethical. And like no one ever mentioned that she's a junior and she's his TA. So if they were to get together, then that would be an issue that Yasmin, I think, should look into.
How much screen time is that even given in this game?
Like a fair amount.
How many scenes are there in together, the two of them? I know that they're in the chapter 4 when they're in the roast sequence with Lucas and all the other characters. There's a scene when they're on the table together, but is there any other scene where they're interacting with each other in the game?
Yeah, at the very end.
Where they're in the so that's how the entire story is told. That God,
The last scene is brutal.
Like even in the last scene as well, it's like, why is Loretta not there? It's like she's in the nightmare sequence, right? So she appears in the nightmare sequence. You can attend to her and like try and make her feel better, right? And I went back and watched some online scenes. I think she turns up for the cat content part, which I'm not paying for, and you know, as it is, but she picks up the cat and takes it away, which I've always said that I've said with Adam, it's the ultimate form of funny capitalism, where basically people spend all this money on cat content and they take it away from them. But in itself, why is she not at the bar? Like, is there a different sequence that you can play that she's in the bar? Because it's like, I thought I played the perfect sequence with Loretta, because we were pretty like, we had a good relationship by the end of the game, but she's not in my bar. And I'm like, hang on a minute, why is everyone else here? Like Diamond's here, all these other characters here. I'm like, but you aren't. And she's such a weird character, Loretta, in terms of the way the marketing is done. It seems like she's going to play such a bigger role in this game.
I know.
And she just like in out, and it's like, I just don't get it. It's like what? But again, Felice said this in one of the interviews where she was talking about like they rewrote her as like this character that was like this student that looked up to Lucas Comanero. So it probably makes sense why her role was like minimalized into this snoopster as it is, with an inferior podcast, I should say. But like, you know, as it like one of the things I had, and I know it's limitations and stuff as well. It's not even an issue as well. I wish we were in the space at this point. It's like they had like audio files recorded where like Loretta's podcast plays when you're walking down the hallway or something. So it's like, you know, a true crime podcast comes up and she gives you commentary about stuff on the thing. So it's like, I would sooner be interested walking down the hallway, hearing Loretta talk about Maya Okada and stuff like that, when there are moments where you are just like sifting through things. Because I remember I was just like exploring certain areas because looking for the Polaroids and stuff.
That would have been cool.
Why do we not have that? Because I feel like that's still, I get it, we're working in realms of budgets and etc. But I think like all you have to do is, I've seen it in Spider-Man, you just pull up the podcast thing in the corner, it's like her voiceover starts playing and she gives you insight of it. In itself, Max has headphones. We see it in the earlier part of the scene where she puts them in, never puts them in again after that. But like, you know, as it is, they'll disappear.
Like, I'm done listening in my headphones, bad things happen.
Yeah. I just don't get certain things in this game. There are good things within this game. Very few good things, I think, if anything. But as I've always stood as well, I feel like the narrative is just, I'm screaming my hairs out at like looking at this kind of thing and being like, what's that? And it's not even me being pedantic either. Like, honestly, it's not even me being like, you're really nitpicky with like this, and that. It's like a common consensus. And I've said this before with you as well, because we were talking about a podcast. I joked with you as well. I was like, if I walked into Square Enix's HQ tomorrow, I'd probably get set on fire anyway. Like, just be like the devil incarnate. Not that they're going to do it, but I'd be like the devil incarnate turning up there. If I sat with all the people at Square Enix, giving them a piece of paper, and I was like, tell me who killed Safi on this piece of paper, there is no way in hell I'm getting 100 responses back from 100 people saying this is the killer. Because it's never really explained. It's rewritten, it's redone. Where does it go from here? I even joked with you saying that the one part of the marketing, they're like, Max needs to work out quickly who the killer is before they strike twice before they strike in both timelines. And I'm like, that doesn't really happen, does it? It's like, what are they striking in both timelines? I thought it was like, you know, proper Cluedo-esque murder mystery where we'll start seeing dead bodies pop up in the game, where it's like, you know, like in itself, this could have been a good thing for Lucas Comanero if they'd killed him off as we found his body. It's like, oh, so the killer is actually taking out these people. It's like, Safi's a shapeshifter. Like, set these people up, make it a bit more Jeopardy, if anything. Where did you stand on the murder mystery? Did you solve the murder mystery?
I
the
think
audience wants your answer. They need you to solve this murder.
Yeah. So you and I did discuss this, and first of all, another issue that I have is that Max jumps into a Polaroid that she's not in. It's the picture of the owl right before Safi's murder. And that's a mechanic that does not exist in the first game. Like, she has to be in the Polaroid, right?
let's talk about the powers. Remind us, we'll jump back into this segment because that in
Yeah.
itself is.
Yeah, so the powers just kept on expanding. There was no real rhyme or reason. It felt like they were just changing the powers to fit the narrative as opposed to making the narrative fit the mechanics. And you know what I always say, what I'm always on about, the mechanics drive the story does not drive the mechanics.
Exactly.
Yeah, do you want to take a second and talk about how the powers kept compounding?
But you that's the problem with the powers, because you systemmed my issue with this game. This game is Life is Strange Double Exposure, and when it wants to be a sequel, it becomes a sequel. When it doesn't want to be a sequel, it doesn't want to be that. And unfortunately, you can't do that in narrative storytelling. So it's like, this is the huge issue that the purists, I don't even think the purists, I think like a large volume of people have with the way that Max is told, because you don't respect her canon, you don't respect her things. And it's like, even if you pick the endings as well, if your Max, for example, chooses to kill Chloe Price and save the town, your Max at the end of the game establishes, I'm not going to use my powers ever again because there's deep underlining repercussions that I can never use my time again. And obviously I did it from the other one where, you know, with Chloe, we broke up. Sacrilegious, I know, but it's like, I did it from that. And when she keeps jumping into the Polaroid and then jumping out and jumping back in the Polaroid, I'm like, have you not learned anything about this? Have you not learned anything the last 12? Like, what were you doing? Were you doing this in your spare time, just jumping in and out of photos? And again, you're also pointing out the other thing where people are like, she can't jump into Polaroids like that when it's in that circumstance. And it's like, her power has like, it has parameters. That's the special thing with Max's power in the first game. So it's like, there's parameters. So she can jump into certain Polaroids. She can't jump into every Polaroid, can she? Because it creates like all this kind of like, you know, you're losing control of her powers. That's the issue with this. So even in, again, the comics, the powers are controlled, but they work within the parameters of what Max can do.
Right, and I think people will also point out that the blue butterfly photo that she originally jumps into does not have her, but it has her reflection in it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the workaround for that. Yeah, but go on.
So it's subtle. So it's like you have enough reason to explain why her powers work that, because otherwise she'd just jump into every photo. Like, you know, I'd be living life because I'd be jumping back into photos where there's a McDonald's meal and be like, yeah, it's like, there's my dinner side. I don't have to make any food, and I can save the calories from my other version. So that's an issue in itself. So basically, we have that as an issue in terms of jumping in and out of the powers. Then obviously the evolution of her powers being splitting timelines, which that is not an evolution of Rewind. And you can keep arguing with me all you want, but splitting timelines is not an evolution of Rewind. It's just not.
No argument from me.
Fast forward is an evolution. You have to manipulate the existing power of it. And itself, Pulse is an interesting idea. I think it could work, but again, it's not her fit. For me, it has been. I know some people have argued with me. No, it's an Alex Chen thing that, you know, if you're an empath, you'd expect to be able to pulse into another universe and feel people's presence, etc. But going off a path here. So in itself, Split is an interesting one. I do find it, I don't know if you felt this way as well, because obviously we're in a restricted area with the snapping turtle. I love that strategically the Split timeline is in front of the toilets. So imagine the person that's sitting in the booth behind you just watching you like rip open time. I'm like, why don't you just put it on the decking outside? I know there's a sequence later in the game and there's two people
put
out
it in
there,
the
but it's like,
bathroom.
yeah, open a bathroom up. Open the women's bathroom up where she can walk into it and just...
Yeah.
Oh, dear God. Yeah, so we have that. So we have that. And then we have the other power, which I can't remember what it is now. It's been a long week for me. It's the one where she can pull things out of the other universe. Entanglement.
Yes.
Which is used for two sequences. So it's used for the Alderman sequence where she pulls the telescope out, and it's used for the ice sequence where Safi is on the lake with her. That's the only time it's used.
I have something to say.
It was meant to be different. It was meant to be different, apparently. I was reading an interview with Aisha Farah and John Stauder, and they were explaining that it was meant to be like, you could basically use things to manipulate into other timelines, but the budget limitations, etc., they scrapped it. I thought they'd remove the power completely, but it is in the game. It's just literally trigger pointed.
And she pulled Safi into the Polaroid with the owl. So is it just stuff that she can hold anymore? Because everyone was laughing at me the very first episode that we did, where I said, why doesn't Max just hold Chloe's hand and rewind back in time? Because if she's holding an object, you exploit the mechanic that way, right? Everyone was like, no, you can't just bring her back. Well, look what the Deck 9 writers did. They listen to
Fair
me.
play. No, fair play. Yeah, fair play. Take your kudos for that. Yeah, it's weird, man. Do you want when you jump into the photo of her for the first time on the counter, and we end up in that area, and the tornadoes in the background? I was like, I was
What was
like,
even going on?
I was like, what is even like? My favorite was what Adam was like. It's like my favorite part was like, I thought Max was going to turn around and shoot the tornado.
I did too, because she was waving the gun.
Oh, it's infuriating. 'Cause it's like that's not the reason for a tornado. Oh, I can't go on that rant again. But yeah, the powers are just weirdly done, man. It's like just give her in itself, right, rewind, pause, fast forward, manipulation of a certain time element. They do in the comics pocket time. You manipulate a certain piece, everything else stays the same, but you can manipulate the same part.
Yeah, that would have
Just
been cool.
evolve the like simplistic mechanics and keep it within the parameters of it. It's like when you start doing this thing where it's like Max can jump into Polaroid and Max can jump into that. It's infuriating, man. Entanglement was a weird one as well. It's like in terms of the two sequences, and it's like, oh, it's like why do we not have any other point in the game where we need to use this power? It's like literally that shows you as well that entanglement is basically a plot device. It goes to the point where it's not used in any other portion of the game. So it's like splitting is fair.
It is. It's also used when you bring back the gingerbread piece, but like to that point, why don't Safi and Moses exchange notes or whatever from Living to Dead World?
No, sorry, wait. You mean entanglement with the gingerbread piece?
Yeah, like, well, is entanglement when she can bring objects from one world to another?
No, so entanglement is there's two specific parts with entanglement. So she can basically split timelines anyway, and she can grab something and bring it back with her.
Mm-hmm.
Entanglement basically brings through a bigger object. So, for example, do that telescope that gets ripped out of the other universe? It has like more power with it. So it's like it can manipulate the timeline. So it pulls the telescope through, or then later in the game where the ice is cracking, she does entanglement again, and it fixes the ice. So
I see. So it's like a switcheroo.
It's like steroid version of splitting timelines, if anything. Like as you said, like June, she can pick up an Allen key from the other universe and take it. That's just in the split power, but it's like it's a steroid version enhanced of it. And it's like it never really has clear parameters. It seemed to be something else, which it was at first, and they've completely changed it and they diluted it. So it's like it's only used 2 points. In terms of the gingerbread, I thought that gingerbread story was quite touching. So if anything, sweet. I thought that this is where I'm like. Yeah, this is what I mean. Where I'm like, there are certain points in this game which are actually like, you are almost on something, but it's like then you're like, hang on a minute, this has happened. I'm like, fantastic, that's just overshadowed it. Yeah, again, but this is the problem with what you said, where it's like, couldn't they just pass over notes to each other? It's like, yeah, but this game isn't applying logic to things. Like it's easy opening up certain things. So it's like, yeah, why doesn't Moses and Safi talk to each other over notes? Couldn't she just pass him a note and be like, "Hey, can you like talk about this?"
Yeah,
no, doesn't do it. Yeah, it's just the powers are just weirdly explained. They really are weirdly explained. It's like in itself as well. What I found very interesting going back and watching things, I've been doing a bit of research here and there, and it's like when you listen to the interviews, they're like, "Yeah, Max can't rewind time," and it's like, "Wait, so her powers gone?" And then later on, they're like, "Her powers are atrophied." And it's like, "Wait a minute, what?" So her powers are dormant or they're gone? And it's like, no, her powers are gone. And it's like, a simple answer, have her powers gone? And it's like, we just need a simple answer. No, her powers are atrophied. Oh, it's a Safi timeline. It's not an Arcadia Bay timeline. It's a Safi timeline. It's like, you weren't applying that before when you were saying that you were doing both endings. It's like, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that I didn't fully understand Max's 3,000 ever-expanding powers.
The evolutions of her powers is just so... It was By the way, as well, can we just talk about that third sequence as well? When Alderman comes into her office, into her apartment. No, but I agreed in the I agreed in the previous episode, be like, oh, okay, Mr. Alderman, here's your card. I'll take it, and if something happens, I will tell you. This guy comes into the room and goes ape he goes from 1 to 100, and it's like, what? And it's like, and the entire point of the photo being left on the counter. Oh my god! I genuinely, I was like, You know, if that was a film doing that, I would have walked out the cinema. Where it's like when but she's like, yeah, she's like, okay, cool. I'll leave this on the counter of me, a picture of me with a gun, right? Goes to the door, Alderman comes in, and she panics. Do you know when she's out of panic? She's like, I need to like hide this photo. Goes behind the counter, coffee's sitting there, photos there. I'm like, move the photo. And she just keeps looking at him. It's like, move the photo. It's like he's not even looking at certain parts. Move the photo. Doesn't do anything. Then Alderman's like, he's like, all this leads back to does this like weird spiel.
Yeah.
Then sees the photo, and then she moves it, and I'm like, no, no, no. It's like it's not even like it's a large object or something. Just knock it off the wall. If anything, as well, and you want to be a bit smart, she tries to knock it off, and it flies towards him, and he picks it up and sees it. Or
Yeah.
he sees it. Like, do something a bit more smart. Kind of like.
I mean, none
Right,
of it's admissible anyway. He doesn't have a warrant.
Because he doesn't exist. That's why in that
He
timeline.
doesn't exist. How could I have forgotten?
Did you punch him?
Did I what?
Did you punch him when he was dying?
Did I punch him when he was like? Did I not help him? I
Yeah.
didn't help him. No, fuck that. I wouldn't help him. I don't help men who are mean.
But there's a sequence when he's getting pulled through the portal. If you try and like release yourself, Max punches him.
Oh, I didn't notice that, but yeah, I guess I did that.
So it was the standout moment on our review episode we did. Someone commented saying it's like Max punches Alderman. I didn't believe that until I watched it. I'm like, imagine if she punched him and he like fell out the portal and then he arrested her and the double exposure credits just roll over. It's like, yeah, Max is just punching this cop. Oh my days. Okay, here's a better way of thinking about it as well for yourself. Where did this game take a really, really, really rough, jagged turn for you to the point where you're like, oh dear? It's like, because you were like steady when I was talking to you, because I was getting the play-by-play for each episode. Where was it the point where you were like, where was it where you were like, oh dear, this doesn't look good?
I never thought that it didn't look good outright. I really, really enjoyed playing it. I didn't love. Yeah, I know. Like, I really
need your
didn't.
copium drug.
You know that I hated that first episode. I thought that the environmental cues were not the first episode, the very first scene in the bowling alley. I didn't think that the environmental cues were very good, and I was like having a lot of trouble finding my way through that level. And I even sent you a voice message at that point saying like, this game sucks. It's utterly unplayable. But then I changed my tune really quickly.
It's funny, by the way, as well, because Adam had some trouble with like, you know, chapter checkpoints, like moving from things. It's like from the third chapter, it's quite hard to navigate. And they have actually patched that. So there has been a patch where they have addressed navigation, which I'm like, is Life is Strange? I'm not saying to the audience, I'm like, why is this overcomplicated for Life is Strange players? I'm like, it should be really simple that you can just navigate yourself really easy. Because I know what you mean in the bowling alley, because you have to get onto the counter, don't you, to like climb up.
Yeah, I had no idea where I was going with that. And I had like no idea how to even get across the lanes for the first part. And usually you have environmental cues. It's like, you know, video game environment creation 101 that kind of like lead you down, or you have visual or audio cues or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, they needed some yellow paint there.
I know people take the mick out of that, but it's probably the best thing they actually do those dip developers when they like smear like a ladder with paint. It's like, thank you. It'll save me a lot of time with that. Yeah, I think the navigation is very, very unusual at times. I think it's relatively good in certain places, but some of it is like, I'm like, what is going on here? It's like there's like three objective markers that pop up at the same time. It's like speak to Living World Gwen, speak to Dead World Lang, speak to Vin Lang, speak to Diamond in like Living World. It's like, hang on a minute, which order am I doing this? I don't really want to kind of progress to the point where I've like gone to a point of no return. I just find that a bit.
Yeah, I found the scene in Colmenaro's office really hard too. I didn't notice the key, so I was like, okay, well, where do you look?
Adam said the exact same thing. He was like, literally, I think you're not the only person. There's a couple of guides out there as well. People have like written them for like, you know, websites, because it's like, obviously it's going to be click central of like getting people to kind of try and figure out that. Surprisingly, that was actually something I got. I was being a little bit like, you know, snooping into every corner, so I actually got that way. It's like I think it's in the typewriter or wherever it is. It's like you pull it out. Yeah, it's a anyway. That's the point. Where did the game take a very interesting turn for you?
I think probably in like the nightmare sequence. I don't particularly love those types of sequences. Like when she kept on going into the motel over and over again. It just
Mm.
I didn't feel like it was moving the story along. I kind of wanted to get back to my beau, Safi. I just wanted them to kiss. I was like, when are they going to kiss? And then finally got to sit with her and have some touchy-feely conversation, and they didn't kiss. And then
Well, you did get
Amanda
the
was
hand moment on her neck, which was like pretty
oh, I
like.
love that. Yes.
Of course you did. Of course you.
With her mom just like sitting there shot in the background, and Safi's like, no, I'm out. I don't care.
By the way, as well, that entire nightmare sequence, they were kept positioning this game as like anyone can play Life is Strange, anyone can like come into this new. And even before, I've always pointed this out as well. Hannah did marketing reaction, where it's like Hannah reacts to the first Life is Strange sequence, that bathroom sequence. It's conveniently placed out there beforehand. How will you ever get the understanding of that scene if you've never played the first Life is Strange? And in itself as well, it feels weird why you're doing it as well, because it feels like that for me is nostalgia bait. The entire Arcadia Bay bathroom sequence, because it's like it doesn't really drive anything forward in the game for that. Like you're trying to tell these two stories between Safi and Max in this nightmarish sequence, but it's like it doesn't really achieve anything. I was saying that at the end. I was like, huh.
Yeah.
I was like, I think Hannah probably had good fun like playing Nathan Prescott, and obviously Olivia gets to play Chloe at this point. But I'm like, I don't get this, or like what this is really trying to go into here. Like on
Yeah.
more of a on. Hold on.
I think it was kind of meant to explain the time that had passed between the last, like the original Life is Strange and this, but I don't know. It fell flat to me. Sorry, go
There's
on.
trauma. They're trying to explain trauma because they do it with the Jefferson sequence, when she sits in the chair.
Oh
And it's
yeah,
like
that
that
was
big bowling alley. And they're trying to do trauma, but again, this is the problem. Like you lace trauma throughout the entire game. It's like I do counseling and stuff like that. Trauma defines people, it changes people, and you learn to live with that. And I've said this before. I was like, the easiest thing with this game, and even I'm not a writer and stuff like this, if I could just put my input on certain things, the easiest parts of the scenes that they could have easily have added, like even 10, 15 minutes of this, is that even alludes to the fact that there's a counselor / therapist on the campus.
yeah.
She sits in the room, she talks to them, you play flashbacks, etc. It works in both timelines, for variation of whatever else it is. It adds a level of like connection to the character. It adds something that makes her feel like, associated to her past. None of that. So that's why that's my issue with it, because by the time you get to the end of the game, it starts trying to explain trauma, it tries to explain all these points. I'm like, but you can't just put our trauma to the side for one day and then just like, carry on the game, because this is what I had with the game when I kept playing it. I was like, this girl has just slept in a dark room and she wakes up in it as well. And I'm like, would she not have a nightmare when she like wakes up? Would she not feel a bit freaked out about being in a dark room? Maybe you get over that, but I'm still like, you're not showing us that, because we have to make up for a 10-year gap. So if you're going to jump the story 10 years ahead, if we were making a story about you, for example, and we aged you to 40, yeah, we have to tell the story of what happens in that period of that jump of it, because
Right.
if people loved you at this point as a beloved character, they want to know why you've changed your personality. It's like as you said, if you stop becoming a lesbian at 40 and we got to that point and we're like, hang on a minute, what happened there? It's like she's not actually like, yeah, but it's like, it's like she stopped her music, she stopped being a lesbian, she stopped being this, and that. And it's like, can we get an explanation for this? And like, no. I'm like, but it doesn't work like that, because we need to know why she's changed like this. Because, and I brought up there as well, she starts becoming a musician. Why doesn't she play any music in this game at any point? The guitar is
Oh
in
my
the
gosh,
house.
yeah. And Hannah, like Hannah is a wonderful musician.
It's like, do you like literally get given an open goal of like, oh, we could probably do something here because our actress is a musician who's a very good musician. The character is known to be playing music and has some kind of association of that. The guitar's there, nothing. And I'm like, what? It might be minor that. It doesn't, obviously, playing music doesn't achieve the kind of conclusion of who killed Safi. They never explain that anyway. But like, but it adds like a level of detail to your character. So again, these are the issues you have with Max. Because I was saying to you off podcast as well, I was saying that if Square told me to write Max, I would have to like do extensive research to do it. Like I'd have to sit there with books, like notes from sitting there researching what Christian Devine says about her, Jean-Luc says about her, Michelle, people who co-created her, who wrote about her, people who had a hand in her development. I would have to do research on what Hannah Tell says about her because I need to understand what her input is on this and what she thinks of the character and her perception because she's coming back. And I was saying to you as well, one of the overlooked aspects of this as well would be that I'd go and look at what Serena says about it. Serena's motion capture for Max in the first Life is Strange. It seems to be overlooked, but there's like 2 interviews with her, one that's in French, one that's in English. You can see that on this channel, the English one. But you go on there because you want to understand why she walks a certain way, why she does things, because it's all those people. So it's like all those people have a collective input in different ways that make her. And the last thing with Max as well is the big one, which is the fact that her complete arc is done on the fact that it's you, the player. Because basically it's that ultimate agency because we have 30-year-old, 20-year-old, 10-year-old girls, etc., who all identify with her. We have 30, 40, 50, 60. 30, 40, 50, 60. Everyone identifies with Max. Whether your age, background, gender, religion, you identify with her because she's a vessel, so you can project yourself on her. She has her own agency. She has her own traits, her own kind of things. But even in itself as well, like Max is alluded to be a character that's on a neurodivergent spectrum, and yet anyone who isn't even on that spectrum can still associate themselves with her because she gives you that thing. So it's like if you're going to sit there, I'd probably be having like 10, 15 pages of notes thinking like, this is what makes Max the character that she is. That isn't shown in this game. So even for me, even beyond other things that happen in the game, Chloe Price is a big one. I have a big problem because I'm like, as I said before, I think you character assassinate Chloe Price and then you also character assassinate Max Caulfield because people age. I get it. I know I've had fights with people about this before, even my own stubbornness. It's like people age, they change personalities. However, to change that much, you have to explain it then. Because if you're going to do it, you have to explain it. But then Max will still be the person that she is because 18-year-old Max, 60-year-old Max is still going to show big traits that are in 28, 29-year-old Max. It's like, I know people that still play Pokemon now who are in their 30s, they collect the cards, and they were doing it in their 16. Doesn't mean that, for example, if you're 16, you're not going to stop playing Pokemon when you're 32 or you're going to forget about it. It's going to be part of your history. So they did a big issue of Max where it's like, that's in itself, like, I'm like, a huge issue within this game, if anything. I'm still kind of, I can't believe it as well. People will be having to comment on this as well, that you sold Chloe Price down the river for Safi. That's like shocking as well. I can't believe like Safi's left that much of an impression on you. But
I love Safi. Oh, I am Team Safi now.
So,
well, okay, go ahead.
With Safi, some people just outright dislike her and like hate her and think
Yeah,
my perception is that I don't think the writing does justice to her. Because I said that if I took her out of this game and put in True Colors, I don't think people would bat an eye, if anything. In most cases, I don't think they'd bat an eye. I think the performance is carried heavily by the actor, Olivia. But for me as well, with Safi, when Safi is just being Safi, I think she is an interesting character which can be explored a bit more. When she's trying to be Chloe Price 2.0, that's when the big issues stem. Because I'm like, why you just let her be her own character? Let her work within her own parameters. And I just think, like, for example, why did they mess around with the entire love interest with, like, Vin and Amanda? Just make Vin and Amanda separate characters, their own characters, not love interest. One thing I don't get with Life is Strange, and I don't like this being part of the formula, take away the option of having a love interest in terms of that you get to choose. Make it. That's all right.
They were hurting each other. Cats, not humans. These are cats. Okay.
So I get it from twofold. I know why they do it, for example, with like giving Max 2 love interests, because they don't necessarily want to establish canon, for example, and they also want to give players choices. I would sooner be interested in a Life is Strange game where they give you just one love option, and either you romanticize them or you don't. And I'm like, I'm fine with that. But it was like when I was playing this game, and I was like, okay, cool, I've lost Chloe, and they've broken that up, and I'm like following the story, and I'm like, oh, here comes Amanda with a bit of her horniness, and here comes Vin with a bit of his horniness, and here comes Safi with her horniness. I'm like, why is every character horny in this game? I'm like, why are they all coming on top of each other like this? It's like, it's just a bit uncomfortable. I'm like, this is a bit awkward, the entire thing. I didn't really share a connection with Amanda, and I batted that away. I was like, I'm not really that interested in it. I think if they made you your own character and they weren't pushing this love interest, you'd so that's the huge issue I have with Amanda, because I think like her primary purpose is to be a love interest in that game. And
Yeah.
I think that overlooks the fact that she should have more to her. She should be her own character with more depth and personality, but otherwise she's basically the bartender that works there who's your love interest. And other than that, what else does she serve to the purpose of the story, barring
Yeah.
a double exposure photo moment?
I don't know.
Oh no, sorry.
I had
Safi
feelings about
impersonates
him.
her.
Oh, sorry. What was that?
No, sorry. I think I was just joking as well. I said that in plot point as well. Safi impersonates her, so that's why she's there as well. So
Yeah,
let
she
Safi
does.
become yeah.
After Max asked her not to. Yeah, I think Amanda was well written because like you could clearly tell that there was someone who was familiar with um like the cadence and the style of speech that a New England lesbian of millennial age would use. So I felt her very authentic in that sense, and I thought her voice actor was great. But like she was kind of shitty because she didn't want to be with Max because she didn't want Max's baggage of grief, yet she immediately wanted to be witness to the grief and like kind of like be up in there. And then like at the end, if you do romance her in the living world, she comes at you saying, "Oh, well, I didn't consent to that." And it's like, yes, you did in that world. Yes, you did. And the only reason that you didn't want Max in the dead world is because you didn't want her trauma, but like you wanted to be a spectator on the side to gawk at it.
Yeah, see, we have very different opinions. I find that thing entirely deeply unethical, disturbing, etc. Where it's like you can basically go into the other realm, have some kind of like sexual relationship with her, and then when the timelines merge, it's like she gets all those memories. So it's basically someone who didn't want Max in the first place, then has this kind of memory that she's got with Max. And I find that really weird. I just find it just like, who thought that was good? But this is again the issues that with Max. Would Max do something like that? Would Max do half the things that she does in this game? It makes me question. It's like, have you played the first Life is Strange game? Max is a very polarizing character. Yeah, is she this kind of person? Because everyone thinks she's a dick, and Max is different for different reasons. I think the interpretation of her being a dick in the first game is how you see her. But the same can be said about Chloe. The same can be said about Rachel Amber. They are in their own right different characteristics. But with this, Max just comes across as deeply despicable to every character in this town. The population of 10 people are in this town. But it's like,
Yes.
I just don't get what you achieve from this. And same with Amanda. It's like her story doesn't advance, barring being a plot device for Safi in terms of being an impersonator of her, and then also being a love interest, which, as you said as well, I found it really uncomfortable, that entire opening sequence when she comes in, when Safi's been killed, and she comes to Max's house, and the tone just changes so weird. The dialogue is just strange. It's
Yeah, it's
like,
very strange.
and it's like, I think my favorite part has been of anyone is where Adam's like, you pause the menu screen and it's like dun 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 dun. It's like really positive upbeat music.
That
It's
Tony
like,
song.
and he's like, hang on a minute. It's like, this is not really tonally fitting for the mood of thing. I'm like, actually, maybe that is somewhere the soundtrack could have like really improved and like added a bit more different flavor of music.
Mhm.
Yeah, Amanda's just a very. I think the actor's fine. I think all the actors are fine. I think even the ones that have really badly written characters, I think they're all fine. I think they do great. The performance direction is great on the entire game, but
Yeah.
it's just ultimately it's the writing, the creative team, everything. My issue with Double Exposure is there's certain things that work well with it, certain things that like the environment, the aesthetics, certain things like in the Deck 9 flavor profile, it's all fine. Ultimately, the narrative is above it, and it just collapses on it. So it basically causes the entire thing, and then it's just a remnants of what the game is. And I have a big issue with that because it's like, I was talking to you off podcast as well. I can't support a game and think this is fantastic when people I spoke to were like raising their eyebrows at certain elements of the game. And I'm like sitting there thinking myself, I'm like, well, that's a bit strange that. Well, that's a little bit weird that. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. It's like, even when we were talking about the third timeline that during the Polaroids as well. And it's
Yeah.
like, and we were like, is there a fourth timeline? Is there a fifth timeline? It's like, what
There
happens
could
to that
be.
other
There could
Max?
be timelines.
But it's never explained though. So it's like you can try and do like, interdimension stuff. If you're clever enough to do metaverse writing, then do it. And I think metaverse writing is becoming quite boring. I think people have gotten over that now as well. Even Adam
Yeah.
says it to me as well. I think it's been done as in everyone has had metaverse writing happen all the time. And I'm one of the people that plays the other Square Enix franchise, which is Final Fantasy. Some people might have heard of it. And I've been playing the FF7 remake versions as well. And I understand now why FF7 purists absolutely hate that remake, because Square Enix is like smashing timelines together and trying to do metaverse writing. And they're doing it with this game. And I'm a Life is Strange purist seeing with this game. And I'm like, you've messed this up, because, I'll say this as well. There was a way of telling a game after the events of the first game. I think you can tell it, whether it's with Max and Chloe or it's just Max, but you still have to address the elephant in the room, which is that Chloe's not there. You have to work on that. But there is a way of telling a story with Max afterwards. The simple fact is, you tried it 9 years later and you butchered the execution of it. Like, you absolutely butchered it. So there are certain things about Double Exposure which are good in terms of certain plot points we were talking about, in terms of, you know, I think Max and Safi talking across the table is a great scene. Actors deliver that. They carry that really well. I think, because there are some interesting dialogue choices, and I was like, you know, I'm still trying to work out how rewinding time is white privilege. That makes no sense. I'm like, who made that line? It's like, I'm like, well, oh, come on.
Hours, right?
It's just like something else. But like, though, that scene's good. We were talking about the gingerbread house sequence with Moses, which I think was lovely. I love that story. I was like, that reminded me of with Ducky and Alex in the game when they start dancing in True Colors. I'm like, why was this not more of the game? I would happily take another game which was as beige as True Colors. And even if it had Max in it, but you somehow delivered with it. Instead, you just caused this problem where you're trying to be too smart with things. Just reel it all in, get a creative vision on the project, get a creative director on the project who can helm things, control egos, and hopefully we get a game that delivers. And that's my issue with this game, because I enjoy certain parts of it, but ultimately those certain parts were like detached from the bigger issues with the game, with the narrative. All these other issues, like one-dimensional character, Lucas Colmenero has zero redeeming qualities by the end of the game.
No.
Give him reason to redeem himself. Give him a character development. It's like with Vince Alderman. I was saying this as well. They make him out to be like every stereotypical cop that's written in the 21st century media. And then, for example, you go and play Life is Strange 2, you see more variation of cops in America in that game than they have shown in any part of Life is Strange. Because it's like, not all of them are bad. Some of them are bad. Some of them are good. You can't just do the stereotype and then be like, Vince Alderman's this like really hot-headed cop, and he's like, da-da-da-da. Oh, and then he doesn't exist, and oh, he goes through a portal, and then oh, he gets punched by Max. It's like, just let's address one thing at a time. One thing at a time, you know? Oh, by the way, I'm going completely on a tangent here. I need to bring it up with you. Did you get caught by Vince Alderman when you were sneaking around?
No.
So do you know what happens there as well?
No.
So they showed this during the PAX West playthrough that they did, right? If you get caught by Alderman during this sneaking sequence, Max rewinds time and goes back to the checkpoint, and she goes like this. She gets a nosebleed, and then she's like, did I just... And she's like, I didn't think I could do that. And then she like continues on. It's never explained out of that sequence, never addressed outside of that sequence why Max can rewind time at that point. I think it might just be like a cutesy nod to the first game, and it might be a cutesy nod to her rewind. It is never explained why Max can do that. That's another power she has. It's never explained that she can subconsciously rewind time. Vince Alderman will see her. He's like, wait, what's that? And then she rewinds time. Watch it. Honestly, it will blow when you watch it.
That's major side eye for me. But I will say, if I can go on a little bit of a tangent too.
Yeah, you stop me sometimes.
I know that Felice Kuan is a musical theater writer by trade and training, right? So it made sense to me that like the first 3 chapters, or really the first 2 chapters, are really, really drawn out and a lot of exposition and kind of like the first act of a musical. And then kind of like everything is wrapped up with like a little heart-tugging bow with the gingerbread scene in the final acts. That is very much how a musical theater show is written. And like the things like Alderman are kind of like the funny little, I don't know, one-off music numbers. Yeah. So it was kind of giving me that vibe. And if you look at it through the lens of that as like a musical theater writing piece, it makes a lot more sense to me. But that's just my take on it.
It is interesting. It's an interesting observation to make, to be honest. It does feel like a musical. It feels goofy like a musical sometimes as well during that game. Like even the ending sequence feels like a musical when they all turn up there and she's giving a speech.
Yes.
it's like the closing cue, isn't it? It's like the closing number where they all turn up, and it's like, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that now. Actually, maybe that, but then even that causes inconsistency within video game narrative writing because I don't have any experience from it. But look at what happens, for example, with Safi. You basically write her out for a large proportion of the second chapter, the third chapter, barring the Safi we see in the other timeline. But when other Safi, when shape-shifting Safi turns up, like properly in her evil arc, we have huge problems with the story because you basically have to catch up all this character exposition. So that's when the Maya Okada storyline comes in the Rachel Amber-esque storyline. It's like,
yeah, that didn't make
it's like,
sense.
and we're driving the story too much. So it's like basically you have that inconsistency because characters are getting fleshed out in certain parts and they're not, because it's like you said about I don't know if we record this on the podcast or not, when you say like Moses and Diamond have this kind of like thing, and even though you said it's deeply unethical because considering their positions in the school, but it's like they're only in really the scene, as you said, at the end of the game, and as I said before, when they're sitting at the table in the Snapping Turtle, but we don't see much more of it. They don't need much time because they are side characters, but it's like we need that little bit extra to just kind of be like, okay, that's been established. Because at least, for example, Reggie and Loretta have a scene. They're loving, like Loretta has a love interest thing with him, at least, like as an angle. Where it's like we don't see it just it's
does she? My Reggie was gay. They were
so,
everyone ended up gay at the end in my playthrough.
So I think he has the main connection with Vin anyway. But there is a suggestion that Loretta does have a love interest with him, that she thinks that he is like just a crush kind of thing. Like they kind of allude to this in the wikis and stuff. It's like that there is a love interest angle on that. But again, by the way, as well, here's one for you. Do you, when they go back to the observatory, to where Safi's body is, and you have that entire sequence with Loretta and Max, does it ever explain to you why there's flowers growing from Safi's body, where it was on the floor?
No, I just thought it was like a nod to something magical of happening. I don't know, or like maybe that she's actually alive as a symbol of life.
Yeah, this game, man. This game is gonna send me somewhere. I just find it funny when people like try and like jump in comments and try and explain the logic to me. And I'm like, yeah, that's interesting. Considering I spoke to people on the development team, listen, they were like, what's going on? There's just things that don't make sense. The only people that know that makes sense about this game and large portions of it are the writing team. You'd have to sit down with them and ask what they were trying to get at, because things don't really make sense. So it's like that as well. I'm like sitting there, like, because even when you pull the time, when you do the split, it's like, for example, it's not all like, sunshines and rainbows on the other side. So it's like, oh, maybe it's bled into the other timeline because it's it's not snowy here. It's like, bright weather. No, never explains. So it's like, I'm just sitting there looking at the body with like all the flowers growing out, and I'm like, that's interesting. Like, can we like get a bit more of a clear-cut explanation where it's not relegated to like 1,500 conversations? And it's like, oh, just out of curiosity for you, did the phone annoy you when it kept buzzing?
Like Max's phone?
Yeah, where it kept buzzing with all the crosstalk things. It's like notification, 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 notification. It kept telling you like certain things were happening.
I mean, it didn't bother me, but I don't think I read it very thoroughly because I missed a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's where some
the plot happened in the crosstalk and messages and stuff. Like, I didn't know that you could respond to messages until way later.
Did you?
So I missed a lot of storylines.
Yeah, because like I think some people have like the issues with like where the way Victoria and Chloe interact on crosstalk, which again
so
is very. But this is the thing though. It's like if you pick up the Vicelli comics, the 6 arcs, you get like big portions of it dedicated to Chloe and Victoria establishing some kind of friendship, and it's done through deep exposition. This is done over crosstalk in the cheapest way possible, and it's like these two hate each other's guts. It's like, how are you doing this? It's like you played Before the Storm. You've seen what Chloe's relationship is with like Victoria, the way they try and tell that. It's like, what's going on there? The character exchanges are weird as well, like the messages as well. I think like the main part of the story, Vince Alderman is obviously told through text with Moses. That is a big portion that comes from it. Chloe is just a very weird one where they just leave her sprite there. I love how she has a butterfly It's like, no, we're not drawing it. It's like,
We're
let's,
done.
it's like, yeah, it's like, let's say the budget. It's like, let's not do that. It's like, it's the same with the Jefferson, the nightmare sequence. Let's not draw him a sprite. Let's get the bowling ball to stand there instead of be Jefferson. It's like, that looks scary. It could be like him. It's weird how they do that, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's relegated to that crosstalk and stuff, and it's not really worth your time by the time you read through it. It's like I think this makes things worse a little bit in terms of thing. But I remember when the notifications kept coming up, I was like, right, and I'll pause and I'll read through this and like catch up with things, and it's like it just feels half baked in certain respects. Like, again, certain things are good within the game and I like them, but ultimately large portions of the game are like inherently flawed. And it's like we haven't even got to like the end of the game, for example, because like, did you try and use Max's powers by the end of the game?
No, I guess not if you didn't have to.
So if you press the trigger button, for example, Max will be like, I can't merge timelines anymore because there's only one timeline. So, for example, you've ended the game with Max not having a power, or is it atrophied? Or can she use it still? Will it manifest in something else? Will it evolve into something else? It's never really explained. So it's like, hang on a minute, right, we get to the end of the game. You do the entire talk with Max in the bar, and it's like, Max Caulfield will return, but Max doesn't have any powers now. So what's going
Well,
to be her role?
I mean, trauma activates the powers, and I liked Felice Kuan's, kind of sign off after the big Deck Nine layoff, saying that the point of this game is queer creatives like fighting for their jobs and looking out for one another, and you kind of need supernatural powers to change the status quo, which I thought was a really lovely sentiment. And now Max has another issue on her hands, another trauma, so her powers might reappear. She might get a whole new set of powers. She might be able to fly in the next one for all we know.
Oh my god, the series is going to be the death of me. It's like, why is it like like even the trauma activation of the powers in this game are just like I'm like, come on, it's half baked. But it's like, even with Felice's comments, right? Even when she put it out there, I'm like, okay, I read it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it would be helpful to start with if we understood what you were doing with that, because it seems like you were writing that in like a subconscious level. But and if you were writing that as well, I'm raising some questions about that. But it's like, it still feels like we could have seen that, because if you're going to try and send that message, at least we see it. Because I don't know if we talked about it yet on this podcast, but Abby sent me a lovely voice message and I was following the game, and she's like, I love this idea that Safi is this LGBTQ student who's being like punched down by all the faculty, and she's like fighting against her oppressors and this and that. She's like, I wonder if this was the idea of this, and did it. And I'm like, my first response was like, that's a really good idea, Abby. It wasn't, unfortunately. So like, because I remember as well, Square Enix doesn't think this is a gay game or a gay franchise. So it's like, if we're putting a really gay theme story in there, I don't think they're going to be like they're going to be biting that. Yeah, I just, oh my god, if they reactivate her powers and give her some, oh my god, I'm gonna scream. I'm like, well, it was just like, do you like the ending was like, because like the ending in itself is like the most underwhelming thing ever. Because it's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's like, right, we're back on the we're on the observatory section. It's like, right, or the overpeak, whatever it's called. I can't remember what the exact name is. It's been since I played it. And it's like Diamond's sitting there with a nosebleed. And I'm like, okay, does every character have a nosebleed to have a power? Because I don't remember Alex Shen nosebleeding and Daniel nosebleeding, but we'll retcon that for the sake of it. So she's nose. Yeah, or Safi. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's a red herring. I don't know if she's gonna have a power or not. God only knows. But then obviously Safi turns up and she's like, join my crew and I'll show you whatever. I'm like, cool. And then obviously we get Max Caulfield will return, and I'm like,
Yeah.
mm.
I felt like the choice at the end was overwhelming too, because that was the big choice. And basically she just asked like, oh, hey, will you wait for me here? It's like, yeah, we're still the artist in residence, so we're not going anywhere.
And I also found it weird that people accepted,
I
because that
accepted.
was a really.
Yeah, I want to hook up with her.
Oh
I'm
my
not
god.
going to tell her no.
Did you write this game? Because the horniness is going through to this game, like the way that it's like you and Safi are like.
Lesbians have been deprived. We don't have a lot of media, so we have to take it when we can.
Yeah, but even then, as well, in this game, they break up the in itself. Even though they do all this other stuff, they also break up two of the most like beloved gay characters as well, which is even more of like the spit in the face of like, actually, whilst we're doing all this other LGBT stuff to progress the game, oh, here's a shot of the Doc Martens whilst you're walking. It's like, actually, we'll break up the two iconic gay characters that people really loved, like in their headcanon, and we'll just carry on with it. It's just,
Yeah, for another like way more toxic relationship.
Exactly. Oh, like, oh my God. It's like just I'm not gay, but I can see like stereotypes and stuff. And I'm like, what is going on here? It's just it's weird because by the time you get to the end of the game and you see that, and even when it says Max Caulfield will return, I'm like, did we really need that? That's like literally like Bob Iger 2012 has called, please give it back to Disney. It's like, are you really ending on that Max Caulfield will return? It's like, really, are we ending on that? And I don't agree where people are saying that this game is written for two parts, and it's like this because it's like my I'm gonna say this now as well. I feel really sorry for the people that lost their jobs because I understand the gaming industry. I
Ugh.
understand the climate of it. It's horrible to do it in the holiday season. It's horrible when the industry shuts down. It can take people months to get back into development. The industry's cutthroat, etc., etc. But amid the layoffs as well, this has proven my ultimate defense, which is when people say to me that the game's narrative is good, they've literally laid off the game director, the producers, the narrative team. I've been following it in the background whilst taking a break. Last time I clocked up was about 19 layoffs. I know it's more than that, and I've kind of taken a break in recent events that have happened. You've laid off the entire creative team on this. And how do you think this is a good narrative? This is why I keep saying to people when they try and like defend, like it's an incredible story and it's this and that. It's
I do
like,
think it is.
do you?
Well, and we should have led to with our hearts go out to the folks who've been affected by the layoffs, especially over the holiday season. So we'll
Yeah.
leave it. Um, I do. I really appreciate the moral of the story that like queer people really have to just rely on their peers and each other to get any sense of justice in the world. And I don't think it was necessarily that the story was bad. I think it was just too progressive for this time that we're in. That's my take on it.
No, it's an interesting take because for me, my perception of what you're thinking of is that you're taking a different the way you see it, you're appreciating the other parts of the story.
Yes.
So it's like
Yeah.
you can put aside these
The
like bigger
sin.
systemic issues. Yeah, the systemic sweep that under the rug, but then you appreciate the other thing they were trying to tell, which I think that would have been fine had they not caused this mess. Because basically what they've done is they created a pile of mess here and they've tried to create this theme here, which is like interesting because some people will actually resonate with it, i.e. yourself. But ultimately, it's like here's a better way of doing it. It's like they're in they are driving down the motorway in America at top speed, right? And this is the car with Felice and Stauder and all the team in there. And they've got to the other side somehow, miraculously. They were going at top speed, right? And they've got out of it and they've all got out the end of it. And they're like, phew, guys, we've made it. So they delivered what you wanted in the story. It's like, right, we got to the end, we've delivered that. But then the minute those guys turn around and they look, there's a car pile up behind them of all the other things that have happened, which is characters, plot lines. That's how I see it, where it's like those things have become a systemic issue. And now you've left this. So basically, you've left this game, for me at least, in the sense that it's a mess. And I've said this repeatedly, it's a mess. It's fixable, but you have
Yes.
one shot to do it because you can't go back on it now because you already did what was probably cardinal sin 101 to people, which is that you bought back Max Caulfield 9 years later. And most people just think this is an abstract cash grab, which is a fair assessment to make because you put Max in the role for that. And you didn't deliver a story worthy of her, in my opinion, at least. You have created the mess that it is with the way the game ends, with the story plot points and stuff. It's going to take a very skilled person to come in to fix these things whilst progressing the story on. This is the huge issue we face, and you'll have one shot to do it because this game has quite clearly struggled to perform financially. It's been shown in the charts, it's been shown with all the other things that have happened, and Deck Nine has laid off its entire creative team that worked on the Life is Strange division on this, the top brass. We're talking about the narrative director, we're talking about the game
Yeah.
director, we're talking about the writers, we're talking about Felice Kuan. Like, I have my differences with Felice in different respects, but it's like she was there from like before the Storm days. She was like part of that new
Yeah.
reset wave of Deck Nine. So it's like you've laid all these people off because you've understood as well the reception of this game, the way people have perceived it. And at this point, it's going to take a very, very steady pair of hands to try and put this game back on course, because you can fix certain things. And I was saying to your podcast, for me and Adam have different opinions and stuff. Chloe Price is a situation you have to deal with, because that is a black cloud that is going to forever haunt this series. Because whilst you appreciate certain things with it as well, because they're pushing Safi and Max forward and stuff, then you got the issue now that is now the lingering ghost of Life is Strange, which is haunting it now, which is Chloe. So you're going to have to bring her back into the story. The only saving grace I have at the minute, if I'm carrying this game on from where they are and they can't retcon it, because they have made it a mainline game. I know it has happened in certain games very much earlier in the past, but if you're going ahead, the only saving grace you have with this game to retcon certain thing or trying to fix it is the fact that Chloe Price is an established character in this game in both timelines. She's dead in one timeline, she's in another timeline, you broke up with her, and you've done whatever else. By the end of the game, you've merged the timelines. So in itself, it might be a Safi timeline, but in the Safi timeline, every character is affected, including Chloe. So even in itself as well, Chloe, who is dead in the other game, you could bring Chloe's other person from the other world into this game.
Well, not necessarily. There have to be parameters on it, because, I mean, at that point, like, everyone in the world who's dead would be alive. So there has to be a...
Do not talk to me about parameters when we just talk about powers. they have butchered that. I agree with you. There are parameters, because this is the other questions that other people have raised. It's like, if we fuse the timelines, does that mean everyone's timeline has merged? And it's like, because obviously Kaladin is a population of 12 people. So it's like all those people have been affected in different forms. It's a university campus. It's an American university campus. And it's like, you have all the NPCs, but there's like 12 characters, 3 professors, 1 professor, whatever it is, like, to teach all these classes. Anyway.
Clearly someone hasn't been to Vermont.
That's your only saving grace, is that she's in there. And I know what you mean when it says, like, the other parts of the world where it's like, you're breaking parameters. But for me, you can make the excuse with Chloe because she's in both timelines. So she's in both timelines in this game, and she's specifically a character in this timeline. So she's in Safi's timeline and she's there. So I feel like that's where you can do it. Even when they do the stupid line where it's like, why are you being the Safi? Is it because she's got a Porsche, in the nightmare sequence? There's canon there that you can establish by the fact that they have some kind of association. That's where you can fix this for me. However, how you do that, I don't know, because I'm not a writer at the end of the day. I'm just me doing my own thing. I have no narrative experience. I don't deal with publishers. I don't deal with all this other stuff. Whoever's doing it, best of luck to you, because I'm sitting on the sidelines rooting for you to fix this, because we are in a very big pickle of this game. Because, like, I get it. I get some people, like, one thing I have to say to you, Abby, as well, and I said it to everyone else, does it look like I really come on here want to shit on this game? It's like, do you not think I want to do, like, conversations about this game saying I enjoyed it and they delivered and we're going to get more Life is Strange and this is going to happen and it's exciting? Why would I hate on it for the sake of it? Like, I didn't even hate on True Colors like this. I thought True Colors was just a safe bet. I thought, like, in itself, I thought they did great. I thought Alex Chen was a kind of a breath of fresh air for them. I thought actually Deck Nine has established a main character they can go with, etc., etc. There were certain points which were like, whatever. But ultimately, it was a safe, strong game in the franchise, in the anthology model. And I've enjoyed every Life is Strange game up to this one, where I'm like, God damn. I'm like, to fix this, like, we're gonna have something. Some magic is gonna have to come on it, because they basically just sacked their entire creative team. I'm like,
I mean, if they're writing queer women, they have to have Felice Kuan and Mallory Littleton back, in my opinion, because they wrote these queer women and they wrote them damn well. And
well, I don't think Mallory Littleton's ever going to walk back into Deck Nine ever again, considering the fact that she threw all her colleagues under the bus in the way that she did in that IGN piece. Yeah, I think that might be a little bit.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, they have enough people there anyway, which I think I know a lot of people who I think are good people who can write those characters, who can carry on the tradition of what Life is Strange is about. Ultimately, for me, the other thing is that they need someone, in my opinion, with a backbone who pushes back against the publisher and really puts their foot down. They really need someone in that creative team who's going to take charge. Like the next game for me, and it's a topic we'll talk about on the other podcast at some point. I'm going to talk with Adam. The director's chair is the most important on this next game because they have struggled to establish a game director after Zach Garris left that studio. Zach Garris came back to that game on True Colors, as it said in the IGN article, when it was like in an absolute state, and he like helped helm it. Whatever you think of him in different respects, he put it on a steady path, right? With this game, it feels like everyone's creative control was out of the window, especially in that creative team, from the game direction to the narrative team. It felt all over the place. It needs someone to come in and to steady the ship. That's the first thing you can do. It doesn't have to be a sellout, standout, blockbuster hit the next game. What you need is someone to come in and fix things. Fix them to the point where actually, if you're going to do a third game, you can springboard and sort these things out.
Who would you want to see as the game director? Can we talk?
I have 3 people in mind. 2 are an absolute not a chance it's going to happen. But there are 3 people I have in mind. And they're the only 3 people that would make me sit up and think, okay, you have my interest again. And I have a lot of optimism for it. Unfortunately, I'm not going to discuss it on this because I'm going to do it for Strangecast. Okay. Well, hopefully the plan was to do Strangecast this week, when I think this will drop this week. But obviously my cat passed away and we rescheduled things. So it's like we had to move things. But there are certain people in that studio. I think there's 3 people minimum that I'm looking at. There's one definitive, and that person for me is the only fit at this point that has to come into the studio, into the game director's chair, and helm it and take it with it. And the remnant.
Everyone watched Strangecast then.
The problem is with Deck 9 as well, is that with their teams, like, because obviously it's been through 2 rounds of layoffs in the last 2 rounds, 3 rounds of layoffs in the last 2 years minimum, round about that, and it's been hit repeatedly. The Expanse team is a really important team for them, and they have really good quality on that. It's a different game, it's a different genre and stuff like that, but the remnants of the Expanse team really needs to take big roles on this new Life is Strange game. They need to shift them into key roles, because that will save this game franchise, because they really delivered with the Expanse. And ultimately, you basically cut out a lot of people who were on Life is Strange, who were working on it. I didn't trust Double Exposure. If you look at the credits and look at all the people who work on it, the flags have merged, because it's like you said before, Mallory Littleton, Bilal, Zipporah Smith, Aisha Farah, Felice Kuan. How many writers do you want in this game? Directors, narrative design directors, all these people. It's like, hang on a minute. There's too many people here. It's like, imagine if we were writing a song, collaborative song, right? And we were co-writing it. But then imagine if I pulled Adam into it, right? And then you pulled Steph Triverson into it. And then we pulled someone else into it. So we had like 5 songwriters on this one song.
Beyonce does it.
Yeah, but do we look like Beyonce? Do we look like Beyonce creatively between the 5 of us?
It's yourself, like...
For me, with this game, it just shows there was a lot of things with the development, which I think people will have to come aware with. But for me, my honest opinion, I've been thinking about this whilst I've been taking some time off. There's 3 names at the studio, 4 maybe. I'm looking at this other person at the moment. One of them is actually a woman, actually, to surprise you as well. 3 people. 3 people that stand there, which if one of them is announced as the director, and again 2 of them are an absolute no, there's only one person that I look at. If they're announced as the game director of the next game, I'll sit back up and I'll be like, okay, I think we're in good hands here to fix what the issues are. Because I think, again, as it said, I know people who enjoy this game, and I've said to you, go and enjoy it. I'm glad that you enjoyed this game. I don't come and attack your opinions on it. People have more of an issue coming attacking my opinions on this game, and it's like, I have fair defense on what I'm saying with certain things of it. I can see certain things which I think, for example, this game is told a lot better from the Arcadia Bay side, where Chloe Price is dead, because it is built for that game. It doesn't take the other game the other ending into consideration. Ultimately, whoever comes in has to fix this, because basically you do have a bit of things with the fact that this game doesn't really make big game-changing decisions, barring the end of the first Life is Strange. Those decisions, you can fix this mess, but they need to get the creative people in place. And if anything as well, where I'm thinking at this point, whatever Quan, Stauder, all those other people did, I'd grab that script and I'd throw it out the window and I'd start again from scratch, because you have to at this point. You can't just take over what they're doing, because it's like there's too many problems with the narrative. There's just too many, because it's like you can enjoy it for what you said, where it's like you liked all these things here. But as I said, it's like they drove down the US motorway at 100 miles per hour and they got to the other side, somehow miraculously survived, got out of the car, and behind it is the car crash. Everything that's happened between it, Chloe Price, Max's personality, characters, story plot points, narrative plot points, this character doing this character doing that, all these things catch up to you, and you don't have to fix all of them in the sequel, because, like, for example, we're not going to address Alderman if we need to. It's like you can F him off at this point because you've already caused that, but other things need to be dealt with for me. And
yeah, I mean, they could just take away the storyline entirely by saying it's another universe.
See, but this is the issue they cause for themselves, because even if you open the first Vicelli comic, 6 arcs about Max, Chloe, and Rachel, in there it says this is one story in an infinite universe of possibilities. And Emma Vicelli herself said, I don't want this to be considered the official canon. She said that. She's like, I don't want this to be considered the canon on this. She's like, and they respected that, and that's why it comes across even better, because the comics can be your canon if you want, but this is this Double Exposure is considered the definitive canon because you carried it on, and it's like now we're in that problem. So what you're saying is, I completely agree. They should have just started with that and said this is a canon in an infinite universe of possibilities, and we've made it from the Arcadia Bay ending. That's what we think personally. So we're gonna
put a black screen.
Oh my god! They've. I'm not looking. I don't know where I'm going to be in like a couple of years' time, but I'm going to be like, watch whenever this reveal happens. I'm going to be like, oh dear lord! If anything else like that, it's going to be something else. It is something. I would not want to be the person helming this game, writing it, whatever else of it. Never in a million years. If they came up to me and said, "Could you write Max?" I'd be like, no. That's how much I fear writing that character. That's how difficult I think writing Max is as a character.
We'll do it. You don't want to.
Yeah, I'll be on this podcast and be like, right, we got rid of her and Adam's taking her place because he also has A with a start of his name. How bad is she as a writer? Yeah, I just think that they've got a big uphill task. It's not just them, it's Don't Nod as well. Both those studios have come through a very rough 2024, and Square Enix has come through a very rough 2024 as well, because Life is Strange is dangling now for me. It's like, you need to win people back over, because like, I think the large consensus is that people don't like this game. I think the large consensus, I would say. I think there's a minority, and if you enjoy it, again, I'm glad that you enjoy it, but I think the large proportion of people don't like this game for a lot of reasons, which is fair, if anything. I think most people would say it's a 6 out of 10 game. For me, it's like a 4 out of 10 game for the time being. It functions, it works, it has good positive elements with it, but ultimately, there are big overarching issues I can't overlook. And it's like, it bothers me, because like, even with yourself, it's like, and you love the LGBT stuff. I'm like, just say what the Doc Martens are, man. Say it. Just say it, man. Give it a reason, because like they did the shots in the entire game. You see so many shots of her Doc Martens. We were joking about it when we were watching the chase sequence, and she's going across the logs like that. There's a shot of the Doc Martens, like very big close up of it. But it's like, okay, fine. If you want to put sponsored things in it, do it. Naughty Dog's done it with its new game. It's got a portion. It's got Adidas, whatever, blah blah. Just say what the Doc Martens are for, though. Say it, because I want to hear it, because it's got a good message behind it. It's got it for your fan base, which is largely built on that. But no, we're not doing that. I'm like, it's just disappointing. I feel disappointed, if anything. That's it. And I'm like, this could have been something bigger. And it's like, there's like tweets out there from like previous journalists I've seen, and like people who worked in the game industry were like, obviously Max coming back is a cash grab, and Max coming back is like a really poor decision. And it's like, it's aged like fine wine for me, because it's like, there was a reason to tell Max's story, but this wasn't it. It just wasn't it.
Yeah. I didn't like the consumerism piece, I'll say that. And also, like, why does every other character only have one outfit? Another qualm.
Yeah, why is Loretta Rice wearing a beanie inside all the time?
All the time. Why does Safi only have one outfit? Like, she's a main character.
It's because it locked mine. Do you know what as well? That bothered me as well. I know it's standard video games, but it's like I didn't buy any of the special editions, and I see costumes locked within the game, and I'm like, my day when I was growing up, all that stuff would be free in the game, and it's like there's
Yes.
portions of the game that's just locked away. It's like if you buy the standard edition as I did, but by the time you get to chapter 2, it pulls up an advert telling you to buy that you should buy the content before you start this. It's like an in-game advert, and it's like the way it's presented as well, in my opinion at least, it comes across like it's some vital piece of content. And if you pay for it, for example, in the UK, I think it was like £15 when I last looked at it. It's like that's extortionate for what, 9 minutes of content, 10 minutes of content, which like this cat just it appears within the game. It's like, come on, man. The game's already on 30% sale. Like it's been on 30% sale on PlayStation. It's been on 30% sale as of today sorry, not today, Monday, when we started recording. It's already like got a massive like price slash on it as well. And it's like it's only been out for 2 months. It's like it happens. Price drops happen, but that's a big one for me to be on 30% sale already.
Wait, are you saying that it's within the gameplay? I'm wondering if I accidentally got it. Because I did have
What's
the
that?
cat in, like, was it a
No,
separate?
so it appears in the game. So like the advert appears in the game. So I believe it is the end of it's either the end of chapter 1 or chapter 2. I can't remember which one it is. There's a loading screen that pops up and it says there is cat content available and it's part of the story later in the game. You can buy it before you start on here because it'll play its part within the story. And then you can go onto the PlayStation Store and it is sold separately. So obviously, because it was part of the Ultimate Edition, wasn't it? But games come out, so it's like an extension package. So you can buy like an extension package of just the outfits, or you can buy the outfits and the cat content. But obviously, the 2 weeks early access is pointless now because you don't get that because the game's already out. But it's charged like a premium price. It's like I think it was like £15. That's like $20 or so in the US. Just like a big amount of money to just spend on outfits, cosmetics, and the cat
Yeah.
content. But this was just basically the standard edition I bought. I didn't buy the Ultimate Edition. The cat content's only in the Ultimate Edition. It's not in the digital deluxe.
So you didn't have anything with the cat, like you didn't get to pet the cat. Okay, so then I clearly bought the Ultimate Edition, but like the
Yeah, you
cat
did.
was in 2 scenes.
Yeah, it's in 2 scenes, and then it's at the end with Loretta when you take it back to her
Yeah.
and she takes it to it. Yeah.
Seriously,
Oh,
that
sorry,
was the
go on.
cat content?
That's the cat content. That's all the cat
Are you
content is.
kidding me?
It's 10 minutes. It's genuinely that is the cat content. That cat content they were advertising, that is the cat content. What you just seen is that's it.
Wow. Okay, well, I didn't even realize that I got it because I was thinking
Yeah.
like, oh, there's some some DLC where you get to like pet the cat more.
No, this ain't wavelengths. This ain't wavelengths. This is just that is the cat content. It is content within the game. It is cat content. Those scenes are the cat content. It's about 9 minutes in the entire game. When you open the door up and you meet the cat, that's the start of the
Yeah,
cat content.
that's crazy. Yeah, if you're thinking about getting the cat stuff, don't. It's literally 2 scenes and all you do is like pet the cat once and take a picture and then give it
And
back to Laura.
you know what the worst part as well for me is that's Hannah Tell's favorite part within the game that she shot and everything else because obviously her cat's names are all the ones that you get to choose
Yeah.
from, and Miso was there as well, and that's her favorite scene. And they've done the ultimate level of capitalism where they've ripped it out of the freaking game and charged extra for it, and it's like the most abhorrent practice. Yeah, that is genuinely the cat content. I'm not even taking the mic here. It is literally that. Is that
That's
10 minutes?
wow, that knocked the entire game down a star rating for me. I can't believe that that was the cat content.
Yeah.
I thought that I didn't get it.
No, that's it. Because even the outfits activate at certain points, don't they? So that during all the outfit options you get, you can only wear certain outfits within certain chapters. So they're not always constantly active. Because I've seen forum posts with people saying,
Yeah.
"Has the cat content started? Have I got the cat content? Have the outfits picked in there?" Obviously, it's premeditated, so you have to pick at certain points when you do things. But the cat content is literally that sequence when the cat turns up and you name it. Then there's a later sequence where you can pet it. I think when it's on the bed. Or
Yeah.
wherever it is, and then after that, it's when you take it to before you get to the ending sequence of the bar,
Yeah.
and Loretta takes the cat away. That's all the cat content is, unless I'm mistaken as well. I think that is literally every scene that's in the game with that.
That's wild to me. No,
Yeah.
that's crazy. I didn't even use the extra outfits because I didn't like that her hair color changed, but like stayed the same when she wore a beanie.
Did you not fancy cosplaying as your dead girlfriend when you were romancing Amanda? You could have
That's
put
weird.
Chloe's outfit on.
Oh, is that what you can do? I didn't even notice that.
Oh yeah. No, there's a fan favorites pack with Before the Storm Chloe outfit. She has like her hair's Chloe Price and the Before the Storm top. It was a meme for a while. that people were like, here's Square Enix's love letter to the franchise. You can cosplay as your
Right?
dead girlfriend.
Well, maybe
Oh
that's
yeah.
like foreshadowing for what Safi's going to do because clearly Safi's going to impersonate Chloe at some point and try to
But
get with Max.
you could have done it in this game. There was so much room. You could literally have told that story from the idea of like, because even if you're doing really weird revisionist cheap history, you could easily have done the game where it's like you start from the Bay ending where Chloe Price is alive, right? You start with that, and Max and Chloe are alive, and you go in with that ending. At some point, Max's powers evolve, and she splits the timeline. So they both walk into it, and they go into the other ending, which is one where Chloe Price is dead. They meet Safi there because she's a shapeshifter. She's modified powers. Something has happened at the events of that. It gives it. Then at that point, Safi meets them, and Safi wants to break Chloe up from Max because she doesn't like her. There's room for it. There was loads of room for it. There was genuinely plot points where you could easily work things through. And ultimately, for me, you have to address the situation with Chloe because if you don't want her to be part of the future of the franchise, address it though. You can't just write it off screen. It's like trying to tell any great medium, and it's like anything from like Star Wars to whatever else. Imagine just like setting up Star Wars and Princess Leia's not there. It's just Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, and you're sitting there thinking, "What happened to Leia?" Oh, yeah, we're going to tell this off screen. Actually, and you're like, "What?" It's like, no, you have to tell it on screen. These things have to be done. I respect those new waves of Star Wars films more because they killed Han Solo off. It's like they didn't kill him off screen. It's like they actually killed him on screen. This hasn't been done, and they've caused a problem with it. But this is the issue that you have. So, for example, you have like Felice was tweeting about a couple of things where people ask about Chloe, and she was alluding to different things. But then it's like she can try and suggest that, but then you go to like Mallory Littleton's Twitter page and her tweets, and she's like, "This is about a game moving forward." And telling a story where we miss Chloe, but we were telling a story about moving forward and da da da. And it's like like different accounts coming from different people, and I'm like, none of you guys are doing yourself any favors here because one of you is digging a hole and the other one's digging the bigger hole here at this point. It's like you caused this mess, and it's like you need to deal with it. How you deal with it, that's your job, not mine, because I don't get paid for this and I don't work in the gaming industry for a reason. This is the reason why I don't work in the gaming industry, because it's like I ain't touching that. The other issue you have as well is that you basically are handling characters you didn't create. So you're creating your characters. These are beloved characters created by a certain set of developers that transcended their medium because of what happened to their success. This is the issue of it. So it's like imagine, for example, here's one before we start wrapping up as well. Imagine, for example, if Deck Nine's creative team saw developer XYZ take control of the Life is Strange franchise, and then they decided to bring back Alex Chen, and they absolutely butchered her to the point where Steph's not her love interest. They write Steph off screen really terribly. They kill Ryan, and they destroy all her agency and everything else with it. Imagine how you'd feel at that as well, because that's a Deck Nine creation at least. It's an IP property for Square Enix, but they created that design and character. That's the huge difficulty you have when you take control of another character. And other franchises have succeeded, like Assassin's Creed with Ezio and stuff. Different people have come into this series. They've written certain characters in there, but they've always kept the constant tone with the characters. And this one misses the mark for me, because cool, age her. Cool, you want to change her personality. Cool, you need to give me a good enough reason why her personality has changed. You don't do that. You fail on it. You fail on like a lot of hurdles. You only accept this as a sequel when you want it to accept it. When it's not, you don't. And we go from there. And we cause this like car crash where it's like bang, 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 and it hits everything. This is a huge problem we have with Life is Strange. And again, I have a certain hierarchy in my mind of like how I would position the next development team and where they would work. But that still needs addressing. I need to look into that a bit more, because there's certain people where I think you have to work there and you have to be in that role and you have to be in that role, because we are in. I've never seen a franchise like this, and especially one that I've been invested in, which is like descended like that. It's plateaued. The sales haven't been good. Look at it. You can see the sales haven't been good. I know the sales haven't been good now as well. It's underperformed. Like it's just, or even if you're not someone who's inside and look at the industry's perspective, all you have to do is collect the sales data from the consoles and the PC Steam numbers, and it shows. And I thought at first they might get away with higher margins because they sold the Ultimate Edition at a higher price.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did afterwards and started to reflect on was the fact that they released this game 2 weeks early, and that has come at their own blunder because people have refunded via Steam refunds policy, or they've waited for someone to leak the game as they have done when they got an early copy of it. And that's a huge issue of it as well, because it's like when someone got an early copy of it, they went through the entire game and leaked the entire thing, and then people were like, and I see what's happened here with Chloe, and it's not what it is, and it just went, as it is, and we've like literally headed where we're at.
Agreed. Just bring back Chloe. That's what we've been saying this entire time, and like, it was a joke at first, but now we think that that's what they're actually going to have to do.
We're both in agreement as well, because I think whether you handle this or not, good, whether this becomes even more of a train wreck, unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with that, because it's a big, big, big black cloud that's over this franchise. It's going to haunt this franchise until the point where they stop making these games. And you're sooner better trying to deal with it, get effectively, than do this, because it's going to haunt every character, Safi, etc. Because even itself as well, sequel-wise, how many characters do you really need to consider for the sequel? Diamond, Safi, Max, I would say Moses.
Yeah.
The people in the bar, I think, are surplus to requirements. Obviously, Gwen, Reggie, Amanda, etc., etc. These characters are essentially, I think you should bring them back because you've set yourself up for that. But I think you can find a way to write them out, where it's like, something happens in between it, even if it's cheap or whatever else, you can do that.
I don't know about that. Vin's easy enough to write out, but Amanda owns the bar, or she's like a co-owner of the bar, so she'll have to be there.
Oh God, dear Lord.
But I
do think
I know. If anything, they will have to recast Chloe probably to match with Olivia, obviously.
Yeah. So what I mean by those other characters, and you fair point as well, because I think like you do have to bring them back as well, like Amanda and stuff. What I mean by those characters, I mean they're not important to the overarching story. It's like Vin, Reggie, etc. They're not absolutely fundamental. Yeah. Like for me, the absolutes are Moses, Safi, Max, and Diamond, because those are 4 characters where there's essentially a bigger plot point that seems to be developing with them.
Mm-hmm.
With Chloe, I think they will have to bring her back. I think they might even have to recast her. I don't think Rihanna DeVries will. Whatever's going on there, I don't know. And I think for myself as well, I have no shade to throw towards Rihanna DeVries.
No, I thought she was excellent.
I think Rihanna DeVries is a very good Chloe in Before the Storm.
Yes. Yeah.
But in this game, this accomplished my thesis, which I believe was that Hannah Tell and Rihanna DeVries, Chloe and Max doesn't work, because when they were doing with this game, they were making Rihanna repeat lines from the first Life is Strange. They were putting echo noises and stuff over it to make it sound a lot like Ashley Birch-esque, and it makes it even more funky in terms of the thing it is. Because of where the timelines are set, and even with Max as well, Max's voice is a little bit different. I think you could just recast Chloe as an older version, and as you said, make it an opposite. Yeah, and make it an opposite of Safi, because it has to be that. Chloe has to, because in itself as well, here's the other issue we have as well. We have no Chloe character development in this game, really, barring them fighting and doing whatever else. We don't really know what Chloe's personality has shaped into at this point in a deeper level, like as Max has, as Safi has. So you have to explain that in a sequel. So with Chloe, you're going to have to bring her on screen. I think you're going to have to recast her. My own opinion. You have to do this. You have to leave Ashley Birch behind. You have to leave this other stuff. If you want to do Rihanna, then do it. But Rihanna's going to have to do a performance of a lifetime, same way as Hannah Tells, to try and deliver this. And then it has to flow. It has to. I just don't know what.
But it just can't work with Rihanna because she's young, and not that Hannah Tall's old, but like Hannah Tall is definitely a decade or more older.
Yeah,
well, she's closer to 40s, I think. So you have to find someone who just has a more mature voice, right?
Which I think is doable in this industry, which is very because in itself as well. Yeah, because in itself, it's an iconic role, and it's come from, ironically, from an actor who's only reprised this once. And in itself, Ashley Birch's career has taken off into a different level, where she's more known for Aloy, for example, than Life is Strange. I would say that's an argument, because that is a AAA video game blockbuster hit with Horizon. But I think you do have to recast her, and I think there are very talented actresses out there, and I think they should try and get an established actor to take that character as well, to kind of guide it. It's the same treatment as like I know they don't have the budgets and stuff because it's never going to work, but it's like, you know, with Troy Baker coming in to do iconic roles for like video games, it's like a Laura Bailey equivalent, not Laura Bailey specific, but I mean established voice actor who has very good pedigree that can come in. If you can find a new actor, fantastic. It'll be a lot cheaper and it might be whatever, but that needs to be dealt with.
But a lot of the voice actors weren't SAG. I don't know if Safi's voice actor is SAG. Hannah Tell probably is, but I don't know if she's been keeping it.
Hannah was part of SAG, but she was part of a different division of SAG. I remember reading somewhere she was part of this division of SAG where when she was working with them, she could still do voiceover performances. She's not SAG now because the SAG actors are still on strike. Dan's on strike. Ashley's on strike.
Yeah. Oh, with the strike, that's another thing I totally forgot that was ongoing. They're not going to be able to cast an established SAG actor.
Yeah, no, Square is not going to work with SAG actors. Like, for me, at least in this project, they're not going to work with SAG actors. Like, Deck 9 has worked with SAG actors because they did it for The Expanse. So when, what's her name now? Kara G came in, Kamina Drummer, she's SAG. So when they did the Expanse mocap shoot, all of it was SAG protocol. They had to abide by SAG's protocol. So they did that. Any other, that's the trend you find with Life is Strange. When you look at all the new entries, it's always unknown actors or people from previous games, people who have very low background, let me rephrase that, people who are up and coming in the industry, who will get casted for it because they get non-union actors for this kind of situations. This has happened. Obviously, we know Life is Strange was hit before with about union actors during BTS's release. Yeah. So they probably will get a non-union actor. I think it's doable. I really do think it's doable. I think you do need a new actress, personally speaking. Again, not shade to Rihanna DeVries because it just seems like they don't. It seems like they don't. My opinion, just from like the perspective, I know there's been leaks and stuff, but for me, it seems like they don't want that. And maybe that's what it led to, like her just being. Sorry, that's why maybe it led to Rihanna just, you know, doing the voiceover, for example, in the way that they did it. I don't know, but I think you do need like you can get away with it, man. If Chloe comes in 10 years older, you could easily change the voice a little bit, like make it a bit more gravelly, make it whatever it is. There's flexibility here. Like we're already dealing with a game which is taking a lot of things at liberty. I think we can take liberty with this. I just don't know. I think if anything as well, the main thing we need to address as well is that they need to drop the superhero motif. Like that needs to go. Like the Avengers style, like whatever. Just can't happen. It can't happen, man. We've been going for a while. Should we wrap up?
Yeah, we should. We're probably going to have to cut some of this.
Oh yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up there because it was a long time coming. Because it's essentially made up for an episode that we missed out as well. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed that. Let us know what you think. Do you agree with Abby? Do you hate me? Either way, you know, put your thoughts in the comments. Let us know. It'll be interesting to hear. If you are new here, as always, one more time, if you enjoyed the video, even if you didn't, you should still like the video. Share with your friends, comment. You can keep up to date with all the Life is Strange content we do here. It's a lot of Life is Strange content, a lot of Life is Strange playlists, etc., etc. It's all very important for us to support this channel and keep it going because you can hear these unhinged conversations while we keep you company for the next game, if anything. Abby, pleasure catching up with you as well. We'll catch up in the start of next year, which will be 2025, and then I'm sure we'll find all kinds of variations of topics for us to talk about, if anything. Anyway, we'll call it a wrap here. Take care, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.
Happy holidays.